A lot of people ask me about all of the specific gear I use, so I thought I would go ahead and do one of those what's in my bag videos. So all of this is current as of October 2018. So if you're watching this from sometime in the distant future, there's a good chance that this stuff has probably changed. But I'm gonna start with the really small stuff, and it's actually really important. A good rocket blower. This is really, really helpful when you're out west in a really dry climate like Colorado, where dust manages to stick to everything. So this, just a quick blow onto the front of your glass, on the back, even can help clean off a sensor. Just super, super powerful. Cool tool to have. When that's not enough, I like to use this really soft makeup brush to just real lightly clean off the front element or maybe the back element, and this comes in very handy as well. And when none of that works, I use what they call actually a lens tissue or a lens cleaning paper. It's a lint-free paper designed specifically for cleaning lenses. And this just real lightly rubbed onto the surface of a lens will generally remove any spots or any other debris that those other two things did not get rid of. So the next thing I like to talk about is like the vlogging setup, or what I like to call the run and gun setup. So for a lot of stuff when I need like really quick footage, I just use my cell phone. It's a Samsung Galaxy Active S7, I think. And I use this motorized gimbal. And this gimbal is a ZHI-YUN Smooth O or Smooth Q. I'm not too sure. It works as advertised. It keeps the footage nice and stable and steady. And then I use this little Video Go mic by, is it Rode? I'm not sure how you pronounce it, R-O-D-E. So that's just for really fast stuff. Like in a hurry. This will most likely be replaced very soon by either a Nikon Z6 or a Fuji X-T3. I'm kind of looking at both of those to replace this whole setup. All right, now let's move on to the actual camera bodies that I use. Currently I'm using two of them. The Nikon D500, just a fantastic camera. I just created a video comparing this to the D850. I'll put a link to that right here. But this is a really interesting camera because I went from the Nikon D810, which is just a beautiful all-around camera, to the D500. And I remember very specifically telling myself there was no way the D500 would replace the D810. And within weeks of using the D500, my D810 just started to collect dust. This camera is just fantastic. Probably the best wildlife camera for the money. There's no question. I just love this camera. The other camera body that I use, actually probably more than the D500, is the D850. A just glorious all-around camera that pretty much does everything, and it does everything extremely well. I'm a big fan of the grip. It helps increase the actual frames per second, and I found that it also increased the autofocus accuracy. So 9 times out of 10 when I reach for a camera, I grab my D850 first. Just an all-around excellent camera. All right, let's talk about the lenses I carry around with me. I don't actually have that many. I currently have 5. Do I want more? Of course. I think every photographer wants more. And I'm gonna start with the widest focal length that I have and then move on up. So the widest lens I have right now is the Nikon or Nikkor 20mm 1.8. This lens is just fantastic. I used it for landscape because it's so wide. I've used it for a lot of astrophotography, and it has never let me down on anything that I've ever shot with it. So the next lens is a Sigma 50mm art lens. The art lenses are just excellent in every sense of the word. They're really heavy, so if weight is an issue for you, that might be a problem. I use this a lot for video. It is so sharp. I've also used it a lot for landscapes. I like it, the way it renders everything in landscapes, kind of gets you a little bit closer. I've also used it to take a few pictures here and there of my dogs, my family, stuff like that. Again, another just beautiful lens. I really like this lens. And next is a Tamron 90mm macro lens. This was their latest macro release. And as a macro lens, it works pretty well. If I had a choice, I'd probably choose another lens after using this one for a while. And I'll show you if I can, and see if it comes out in the video. Within just a few weeks of use, there was dust under the front element of this lens, and you can't get that out of there unless you send it back to Tamron for to have them repair it. That's a real bummer. I haven't noticed that it affects image quality, but it's still, I don't like it. I don't like the dust under the front element. Other than that though, the pictures that it takes on every body that I've used it on the D810, which I no longer have, the D850 and the D500, I'm really happy with the image quality, really cool stuff. Probably the best telephoto zoom lens you can buy, in my opinion, the Nikon 200 to 500. I've used this lens all over the place for just about everything. I've used it for landscape. It's absolutely incredible for landscape. I've used it, of course, for its intended purpose, wildlife, and it has never ever failed me. It's an excellent lens for the money. You can't beat it. I've tried all of the other ones. I've tried both Tamrons. I was an owner of the first Tamron, didn't like it. I tried the second Tamron. I didn't think it was as good. I've tried both Sigmas, and I don't think they performed as well as this Nikon 200 to 500. All around, just an absolutely fantastic lens, and I usually keep it on my D500 at almost all times. My absolute favorite lens, and by far the best investment I've made in any photography gear, is this Nikon 500mm f4. It's the GED version, so it's actually an older version. It's one of the heavier versions. I went through a period where I was trying to determine which one of these prime lenses I wanted. I tried out the Sigma 500 f4 and I had nothing but problems with it. I won't go into detail about that other than I did not like it. And I ended up getting this. I actually got it used. It's a fantastic lens for wildlife, of course, that's what it's made for. But I've also used it to capture some incredible landscape shots, like this shot of the moon in Colorado. And everybody accused me of faking this shot because the moon is so big. So when you use like a telephoto like this to do landscapes, it compresses the whole landscape into a smaller area, and it actually is a really cool effect. So yeah, by far the best lens I've used to date. Just absolutely spectacular every single time I use it. Something else I carry with me all the time, but I don't always use, is the 1.4 version 3 teleconverter. I get asked this question a lot. Do I like using the teleconverters? I have had mixed results with the teleconverter, and I know why. A lot of people think that a teleconverter will extend the reach and they'll be able to shoot subjects that are further away. While that is true, the teleconverter also will do nothing but magnify all of the atmospheric interference or problems that you might be shooting through, and it will degrade the image quality. For video, I think it works excellent. For instance, if you put this on the D500 and you're shooting a 500mm lens and you shoot 4K video, you're actually at like 1500mm, which is awesome. And I've had good luck with it for photos, but only when I had just the best atmospheric conditions, clear, no difference in air and ground or air and water temperature. That's really important. And the subject was close. I actually used this to photograph some hummingbirds with the D500 and the 2 to 500 and my D850 and the 500 f4. And it worked really, really well when the hummingbirds were relatively close. And when I say relatively close, I mean within 50 feet of me. So that's my take on teleconverters. I carry a few filters with me for the moments when I'm doing landscape photography, and I found some of them just invaluable. I have a circular polarizing filter, which I used a lot this past fall in Colorado, and it was extremely helpful for cutting glare on water. But what I found was the most helpful was when I was out shooting fall foliage. It helped cut the glare on all those bright leaves down, and I could get a really good even exposure. It's important to remember though that in order to get the best effect from a polarizing filter like this, the sun has to be either 90 degrees to your left or your right. So it has to be on the side. Otherwise the filter is very, very ineffective, but really good when it is. I also have 3 neutral density filters. I have a variable neutral density filter that allows me to dial in the actual darkness as desired. It's okay, I find myself using it less and less. On certain lenses, it puts an X pattern across, which of course makes it unusable. I also have a 3-stop and a 10-stop, and I need to fill that void with a 6-stop. That's the one that I'm missing. So for those of you that are new to photography, A neutral density filter is basically like a pair of sunglasses for your camera. They're really dark filters that help cut the light coming into the camera. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why would I want to do that? I always need more light. For video purposes, a lot of times if you want to shoot with more of a wide open aperture, you have to use an ND filter. And if you want to slow down things like clouds or water, waterfalls, waves, you have to use an ND filter as well. And the brand that I use is B+W. It's what I've used for both of them. They work really well. The darkest one does seem to have kind of an orange or a warm color cast to it. It's easy to fix in post, so it's not that big of a deal. I get a lot of questions about this one. My tripod and gimbal setup. The tripod I have is a Siri carbon fiber. I actually got used from a friend of mine, Suave. Thanks a lot, I love this tripod. I don't think they actually make this model anymore, so the model really isn't relevant. What I like about it is the fact that it has no center column, which means I can actually lay it flat down at ground level. That's really, really important, I like that. And the gimbal I use is a Pro Media Gear Katana, and it's all machined aluminum. It pretty much makes this big heavy lens weightless. It can go 360 degrees any direction. It can go up or down. You know, the only stopping point is the actual tripod. Super, super smooth. It is a little on the heavy side, so if weight is a concern, that might be an issue for you. I know they make a smaller one, but I just absolutely love this gimbal. I use it for actually landscape and for filming as well, or doing video, and it has never failed me. It's just a beautiful piece of equipment. Another really cool thing that these guys that make this gimbal make is this actual shoulder strap. And it's really cool. It goes over your shoulder like this, and it's got this quick release. So when I want to take my camera and lens off of this, I can just pull it right off of this tripod. I can keep the foot on there, which a lot of them you have to take off, and you can just plug it right in here. Make sure it's good and secure, and then you're good to go, and you can start walking around. It's actually super cool, and you can do it really quick, from one to the other, right back and forth. And when you're doing wildlife stuff, that's really important to be able to move around like that fast. Really cool setup. I really, really like it. So that's it for what I carry around with me in my bag almost all of the time. There's a few holes in there. I'd like to get a 24-70 lens and probably a 70-200 2.8 lens. Then I think I have everything I need. I'd like to try out another macro lens. Then again, there's the Nikon 300 PF and the 500 PF everybody keeps asking about. I'd love to try those as well. As usual, thanks for watching. If you haven't clicked that thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe. I got a lot of stuff planned. And let me know what you think about this video and all the stuff I used in the comment section below. And until next time, I'll see you later. If you want to know how I set up my D500 and my D850 for birds in flight, check out my website for easy to follow setup guides. And if you want to come with me and capture your own images of birds in Florida, I offer workshops in fall and winter. Check out my website for details, and thanks for watching.